All right, and we're back. So this is building on a prior video I did, just learning how to draw these basic shapes in Inkscape. In this one, I'll just kind of make a face for the character and just show you some nuances of filling things in. So I zoomed in here using either the equal sign and minus sign on my keyboard to go in and out, or just using this down here to zoom in and out. So I'm gonna put his face here, and I'm gonna make a new layer just so we can practice that. So I click the plus sign here, and above the current layer, I want a face layer. Cool. And yeah, I'm gonna use the Bezier tool again here, and I'm gonna draw the whites of the eyes, the sclera. And let's see what happens here. Give him like kind of these, some nice emotional eyes. And in cartoons, the sclera don't have to stay on the face; they can kind of pop off a little bit. That's fun. And let's just and these will kind of be cheeks coming up here maybe. And let's just start giving him a mouth. And I'm going to go to my node tool now to just clean that up and say, hey, make that rounder. Button. Hey, make this rounder. Boom. Well, that's cool. Sure. Okay. Yeah. All right. And I want to focus on the eyes because I'm going to show you a trick here. It's like pretty cool. So I'm going to hold the shift key and click, I have my arrow thing. I clicked on one eye and make sure, initially, well, yeah. See, because it's transparent right now, you can't click the middle. You got to click the line. Anyway, so I held the shift key to click one, hold the shift key, hit the other one, right? And then I'm going to go to fill. I'm going to fill it with white, right? Simple enough. And maybe I'll make the lines thicker. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to zoom in a little more. And I'm going to save my work, Control S. And I'm going to show you how to put pupils on this guy. So if the whole pupil is a round circle, but part of it is hidden under, not in the visible part of the eye, and I'm doing this kind of crudely, but I'm going to show you something really cool, okay? So, Inkscape, because you're using these cool vectors, it can figure out how to add and subtract these different shapes in really cool ways. So for example, if I select the pupil that we just made and the sclera here, and I go to path, it has all these options here, and they all have shortcuts. And so I have one or two that I use a lot, so I memorize the shortcuts. Mainly difference and intersection are my favorites. So let's look at these. So we have these two things selected, and if we unionize them, and the shapes kind of tell you what they do, right? If you do union, look, now the two are one big shape. I'm going to undo that, Control Z. If we do the next one, path, difference, this is going to cut a hole. It's saying, hey, take that top shape and cut a hole out of the bottom shape. So that can be really useful sometimes. And then my favorite for making a shape within a shape is this next one called intersection. See how you're going to get just the part that overlaps for the two? And you get left with this would be just the shape of the pupil that we can see overlying the sclera. But we lost our sclera, so that's no good. So what I figured out is if I want to keep my sclera but also make that new shape, I want to duplicate the sclera so it doesn't go away. And so to duplicate, I happen to know that it's Control D. I think if you can't memorize that yet, it's right here in Edit, Duplicate, or Control D. So now there's a sandwich here. It's a pupil sandwich on sclera bread. Know what I'm saying? Right? So the extra duplicate just moved on top of this whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to take this extra duplicate sclera on top, hold the Shift key, and select the pupil. And now I'm going to go to Path, Intersection, You can also do this as the shortcut. Boom. See that? So what happened? The bottom sclera that wasn't selected at all, that just hung out and stayed there. But the top duplicate sclera and my pupil shape, they found just the intersection of the two, and boom. Now it saved me the work, right? Because otherwise I would have had to go in here and draw perfectly this pupil that follows the line, but this automatically did that for me. And now I just color that black, boom, and that's a pupil. So I'll repeat this one more time on the other side just to hammer home the point. So I have my sclera on the right here, and I'm going to hold shift. Oh no, sorry. I have my sclera on the right. I want to duplicate it for that extra copy for combining it. Now with this new copy, I'm going to just make sure the top copy is selected by clicking off, clicking back on. Sure. Selecting the top sclera and holding shift and selecting the pupil. I'm now going to go back to path, intersection, boom, pupil shape. That new pupil shape is selected, so I can go to fill, make it black, and boom. When we zoom out now, look at that, cartoon eyes, boom. And of course, because that's its own shape, if you decide, hey, I wanted to, dilate these pupils a little more, you can grab these points just like you were anyway. You could leave this intact so it stays along the line, but you can manually kind of manipulate that if you wanted. If you decide, hey, that's not big enough. Not my best. You get the idea. So that was one thing I wanted to show you because that's super handy. It's useful for parts of eyes and mouths. It's also useful for creating shadows to objects, like solid cartoon shadows. So I'm going to zoom out with the minus button here, plus minus, right? And I'm going to add a shadow. Let's say the light, like there's a light bulb up here. Oops. Let's say this is a light. Yay. All right. Don't worry about that. But so then there'd be a shadow here, right? That's how it works. Like light is blocked and the absence of light makes a shadow. So I want this little blocky shadow. So I'm going to go back to the Bacillus body layer for this actually, right? Because that's what we're working on, the Bacillus body. And I'm going to use my Bezier tool here. Oops, didn't mean to double click that. And I'm going to create a shape that roughly captures where I'd want the shadow to be. And I can even go over this flagella because it's a separate layer, right? Watch this. And I could go outside here, outside the lines, because I'm going to fix that. So don't worry about going outside the lines on the outside. Okay, so you can see where I'm going with this, right? If I use that same technique, click the arrow tool. First, use your select tool, click the Bacillus body, make a duplicate of it, edit, duplicate, or Control D. And now that's on top of that line, right? This extra duplicate Bacillus body is on top of that shadow outline I created. I'm going to hold the Shift key and select my shadow outline, go to Path, Intersection. Look, and now I have this nice, cool, smooth-looking shape where now if I go to Fill, and I don't make it yellow, I make it maybe black, or maybe that's too strong. Maybe I go, some kind of, oops. You can even make it transparent here. This one's the opacity. Maybe I'll make it black but a little transparent. That's actually good for shadows, yeah. And then that line looks kind of weird, so I'm going to go to the stroke style and bring it to 0. And look, now that created a nice cartoony shadow on that body there, which is pretty neat. And just to demonstrate one more time, I'm just going to do this again with the flagella just to show you. So I'm going to use the select tool. I'm going to click on the flagellum so that I'm in the flagellum layer. So everything's looking good. I'm going to zoom in a bit so I have it nicely on my screen. And I'm just going to figure out with the Bezier tool, like, hey, I want some shadow to be like here, just kind of like running along the bottom of this thing, right? Like maybe there, and also maybe along there. And this, it depends how detailed you want it to be. And of course the shadow's just like an extra piece of flair. And if you're, really making educational materials on the go and it doesn't behoove you, it's questionable how much learning is enhanced by there being a shadow or not. So this is not, but it's just good to learn this technique for various reasons. So now for each shadow, I have to do this process separately because I have 2 chunks here, 1 chunk and 2 chunks. So the first chunk, I'm going to grab the flagellum, duplicate it with Control D, Okay, gonna hold the shift key and make sure the flagellum as well as this shadow selected. I'm gonna go to path, intersection, there's my first shadow, and then I'm just gonna repeat the process. You could color it now or later. I'm gonna grab the flagellum again, Control D, duplicate, hold the shift key, hit this, go to object, path, intersection, boom. And then I can just, I can even do these both at once. Hold the shift key and select one shadow, two shadows, oops, make sure you didn't select the flagellum itself, and go to fill, make it that gray color, should actually remember from before, and then go to stroke style, bring the line to 0, and look at that. You have a nice, beautiful shadow on all of your pieces there. Let's pretend we did a nice mouth here. Just make it like a dark red or something. Ugh. Sure, whatever. Get the idea. And now we have our character. Yay! Oh, and one last thing we should do, since we're basically done with this guy, is just put a shadow on the ground beneath him. Because this is important, right? You want him to look like he's sitting, to show that he's actually sitting on the ground on this flagellum. And so for this, why don't I'm going to click the bottom layer, the body, and hit the plus sign. But I'm going to have this layer be added below the current layer. Okay? And actually, oops, I'm going to double click it and rename it. I'm going to call it Shadow Darkness. Okay, and with that covered, with that selected, I'm going to just create a blobby shape. If the light was there, maybe the shadow kind of, I don't want the shadow hovering beneath the flagellum because the flagellum here is sitting on the floor. So I wouldn't want like a shadow here. That wouldn't make sense for this angle if the light source is there. So let's just make it contiguous with the flagellum here, but create sort of this blobby shape. Yeah. There. And I switch to the select tool, go to here, make the color black, lower the transparency, just like we did before. So it's like a gray, that's a little translucent. Go to stroke color, stroke style, get rid of the line, and boom. That's not bad. Might have to tweak a little bit, but definitely gets the idea home that he's using his prehensile flagellum as a sitting apparatus. Yeah, kinda. You get the idea. Okay, that's him.